Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 109. On this episode of the podcast, Jenn discusses the issue of managing the expectations of others. And now, here's Jenn with what may or may not be one of her greatest podcasts of all time.
Hi, this is Jenn Swanson. Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast. This is the show that helps you to get the job, love your work, and advance your career through better communication, both with yourself and with others. Well, we've had great response from the last episode, so thank you to those who have reached out. If you want to comment or leave a voice message, you can come over to communicationdiva.com and you can leave a note in the comments section under the show notes, or you can use the very cool SpeakPipe feature that usually pops up as a yellow box on the right-hand side of your screen, and that allows you to send me a voice message, and I listen to every single one. So please continue to let me know what you think or to share your own stories with me because I love to hear them. Well, in our family, we've been hosting Christmas dinner a week early for about the past 3 years. And this allows all the people in our family and their significant others to join us without having to figure out who to disappoint. Because we have so many in the family, and there are people who have other relatives who have dinners on the same day and all the rest of it. So we decided we would just do this a week in advance. And because we're a blended family, we make sure it's also when we have my stepdaughters with us and that my grown-up kids don't have other activities booked. So what we typically do is we go to a turkey farm in a neighboring town and buy a fresh, free-run organic turkey at the farm. But this year, our local health food store was offering a really good price if you pre-ordered a turkey through the health food store. And again, it was a free run, no antibiotic, happy turkey, happy at least till the very last day. The only catch was it wouldn't be ready for pickup until December 22nd, which was after our dinner because we had our dinner this year on the 18th. So I went to the health food store just to ask to see if they would by chance be able to offer me the same deal, because it was quite a deal, a savings, but to have the turkey delivered by the 17th instead. And they said that they would take my information, how big of a turkey I wanted, when I needed it, by my name, my phone number, all that kind of stuff. And they would call me once they knew whether or not they could do that for me. And then I didn't hear back from them. So I assumed they couldn't do it early because I imagined they were taking a bulk order and then somebody was going over with a truck to pick up this batch of turkeys. So I assumed they either couldn't do it early or that the person had misplaced my info and had forgotten to give the message that they were supposed to phone me or whatever. I wasn't too worried about it because I thought, oh, well, we'll just go to the same turkey farm we always go to and get a turkey there. And then on December 15th, I got a voicemail from the health food store. Hi, Jennifer, just to let you know, your turkey is here ready for pickup. Not what I was expecting. Thankfully, we hadn't gone to get another one at the turkey farm yet because they're very expensive and we would have no room to keep more than one turkey in this house. Also, thankfully, the turkey that had been ordered for me unbeknownst to me cost what I had expected and was the good sale price. I was surprised that they were able to accommodate my request in the first place, and honestly, it was one of the tastiest, most delicious turkeys we have ever had, exceeding my expectations. So in the end, I saved money, I got the bird when I needed it, it met all of our criteria, and it was delicious to boot. And so I will order from them again next year if they offer the same kind of deal. Expectations. We all have them, and often they get us into trouble, or we have trouble managing the expectations of others, especially in the workplace. And so I wanted to look at this topic because it's something I've struggled with at work and in my own life, and I'm fairly certain that I'm not alone. This is a big topic. The dictionary defines expectation like this: a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future. And the dictionary also says a belief that someone will or should achieve something. A belief, a strong belief. Now, the thing is, expectations come chock full of emotional baggage. An expectation is not the same thing as a standard or a criteria or an outcome. It is a future-focused thing that we believe will happen. And here's the kicker. It's a belief that often we don't ever talk about. It is a strongly held belief that we hold, but often it's a belief we don't tell anybody about. We assume it will be met. Isn't that strange if you think about it? And sometimes, okay, it's a fair assumption. When I buy something new at the store, I expect it to work. When I buy a piece of clothing at the clothing store, I expect it not to have holes in it. And I expect it to be clean, fairly clean. That's a fair expectation, I think. When something meets our expectations, an interesting thing is that we actually get a slight boost in the brain neurotransmitter called dopamine, the happy chemical. It's the same chemical you get after a really good workout. Your dopamine is excreted, and you have that rush, that really good feeling. It's the happy chemical. When something exceeds our expectations, we actually get a large boost of it. When something does not meet our expectations, though, we get a fairly good-sized drop in that chemical, and often we get cranky. So you get, when we meet an expectation, when something meets our expectations, we get a little boost. Yeah, that's good. We feel good about that. When something exceeds our expectations, we get a big boost. Oh, that was fabulous, wonderful. When something doesn't meet our expectations at all, comes in far below our expectations, we get this huge chemical drop. And again, that's when we can get sometimes a little bit cranky. That drop in dopamine is a powerful negative effect. If something does not meet our expectations once, okay, we might get a little bit cranky, we might get annoyed. But I think we're generally hopeful creatures who often allow others the benefit of the doubt. So depending on what it is, we might try again, depending on what the stakes are and what the expectations are. If I have something that doesn't meet my expectations and I take it back to the store and they take it back without asking any questions and exchange it for another one, then okay, it's too bad. Too bad it wasn't great the first time, but I'll try again. But if our expectations are violated a second time, the negative effect is so profound that chances are we will never go back, and we will tell all our friends not to either. So I wonder if you can name a business or a service or a product that you will never, ever again use because of such a negative experience. I'm pretty sure you can. I know that I can. There are places, restaurants I won't go to anymore. There are, because the food wasn't very good or the service was terrible or whatever it was. There are items that I won't buy. There's a particular type of dish soap that doesn't work. Unfortunately, even though it has all the environmental stuff on it that is important to us and that it's eco-friendly and it doesn't have all these horrible chemicals in it, you have to use half the container to get any suds in the dishpan, and it actually doesn't work. So that I tried it twice, 2 different kinds, 2 different types of the same brand, and I will not buy that brand again because of the negative experience. This is really important stuff to think about in the workplace. Unmet expectations can destroy a business. Unmet expectations can damage relationships in the workplace, and unmet expectations in your personal life can destroy your personal life too. Sometimes what's really interesting, I think anyways, is that we don't even know we are not meeting someone else's expectations and that we don't even know that we are doing such deep damage. So what can we do? What can we do about expectations? How can we manage the expectations of others and those of our own? Well, let's start with client or customer or patient or whomever your business serves. I'll just use client for now. Let's start with that because I think this is a bigger topic than managing your own expectations. So I'm just going to use the word client for now. What are some of the key ways you can manage their expectations so you don't disappoint and cause that powerful negative dopamine drop? Well, firstly, be aware that everyone comes to their expectations with preconceptions. Past experiences inform your expectations. These experiences that you have had, experiences that others have had, and especially experiences that people whose opinions matter to you or to your client, those experiences count. That's why testimonials are so important, and references. These are, and reviews. These are people telling stories about their experiences of the service or the business or the product or even the person. And those stories of the experiences of others inform our expectations as well. So there are preconceptions about how something is going to go, how something is going to work, how a service is going to be delivered. And frankly, we can't know what those all are, only that everyone has them. So it's important to have what I like to call anticipatory empathy. Know that whomever your client is, they will A, have expectations, and B, you won't necessarily know what they are or why they have them. So it's good to know that and to remember that an expectation is a strong belief that something will happen or that something will be the case in the future. So your job is then to do the following, and I've got 5 points to make here. Your job is to do the following. Number 1 is to make no assumptions. Don't assume that the client will know how the service will be delivered or anything about it, even if they've been there before. It's really important for you as an employee, as the person who is delivering the service, to be curious and to be open and to take the time to ask questions of the client and to answer questions that the client may have so that you can end up on the same page as the client. You need to be at the same starting point. It would be helpful for you to find out what some of those assumptions and preconceptions are. And if assumptions are made, then you might be imagining a completely different experience than the client is, which sets everyone up for disappointment. So the good idea is for you to make no assumptions that the client understands the process or the product or how things are going to go in your care, in your service, and to be aware that they will have assumptions as well and preconceptions. Number 2, thing that you need to do is to communicate. Communicate repeatedly in various formats. It was Winston Churchill who said, if you have an important point to make, don't try to be subtle or clever. Use a pile driver. Hit the point once, then come back and hit it again, then hit it a third time, a tremendous whack. When I was teaching college, I found that my students worked best with a very clear course schedule. I would hand out a printed schedule on the very first day of a course, and it was a full schedule of the entire course and what would happen during each class, what topics and what chapters would be covered, exactly when exams and quizzes would be, what chapters they would be tested on for those exams and quizzes, etc. And I stuck to that schedule faithfully because that was my part of setting the expectation. I expected people to show up ready to learn, to have done what they needed to do to be able to be ready for the quiz or the exam that day. And if they were sick, I expected them to know what they needed to study to make up for a missed class. And people seemed much more able to settle in when they had this clear outline of what was expected. And everything worked so much more smoothly when people knew what was going on. And that way, if somebody needed to be away because they had a dentist appointment or they had a driver's license test or something on a particular day, they could instantly look at the schedule and say, that's what I'm going to be missing. Can I do this, the class before? So it was just so much more smooth when the expectations were laid out and when everyone knew what was going on. Communication is huge. And just having something in a contract or on a sign or at the bottom of the bill or something that might actually not get read, those things that we all click, those terms and agreements on the internet that we all click and that nobody really reads, that's not good enough. It's far better to communicate too much than even if it takes more work than it is to have to fix it later. So it is worth doing the extra work in communicating with the person and taking the extra time to make sure they understand what it is that will be happening. So that's number 2. Number 3 is deliver when you say you will. If for some reason you can't deliver when promised, it's far better to be honest and transparent about that and to let the client know in advance rather than to try and apologize after the deadline when you can't deliver. So if you know that you are swamped or that a part hasn't come in yet or that you're not going to be able to fulfill the promise of a delivery date of something, let the client know before the due date and let them know why and what's happening. And that will allow the client to readjust expectations and will mitigate this huge dopamine drop and hopefully preserve the relationship. And you can anticipate that they won't be pleased and you can be empathetic to that. So I know this is really not what you expected. You wanted this thing to be delivered on a certain day. Unfortunately, this has happened. We're working on getting it ready for you as best as possible. Is there anything I can do to help, etc.? Anticipatory empathy. Allow them to ask questions. Offer them progress reports if you can't give them an immediately clear due date, a new due date. Check in with them to let them know what's happening because that way they'll feel cared for, even if they aren't getting their delivery yet. It's that communication, we're on your side, I'm here for you, and you know, this thing happened, and etc. It's that empathy that is so key. The 4th thing is to anticipate problems. Be preemptive. A good dentist will tell a patient before the needle goes in, this is going to sting a little bit. You're going to feel a little bite in the inside of your cheek. Then you're going to feel a burning sensation deeper in your cheek, and it might get hot, which is normal, and it's just the freezing going in. That kind of thorough explanation helps to allay fears that something terribly wrong is happening when the patient begins to feel all this weird sensation in their face. And, you know, the mind starts and the anxiety rises, and being at the dentist is already an anxiety-provoking experience. So naming that is really, really good communication, really, really good management. Saying something like it's going to take about 4 weeks for us to get all the paperwork back. You know, at least they're telling you that. If you are told that and the paperwork comes in 2 weeks, you get a dopamine boost because already your expectations have been exceeded. Companies do that all the time. I actually ordered some protein shakes. We have a protein smoothie with a bunch of extra stuff in it every morning for breakfast. It's our same boring breakfast every morning, but it's so good and so easy. And we ordered some protein shakes the other day, and the website said it would take 5 to 7 business days for them to be delivered. Well, they were delivered this afternoon, which was a day and a half after we had ordered it. So not bad at all. You know, and that gives a little dopamine boost, and this company is great. They deliver really fast, and here it is. So anticipate potential places of points of frustration for the client and normalize these. You know, you're probably going to feel really slow using the software program at first, but eventually you'll get to know how to do it and it will be much faster for you. Saying that helps people to feel that they're not alone and that they're not the only ones that are struggling with something. So that's number 4, anticipate problems, be preemptive. Number 5, explain the why. And this follows on the anticipatory empathy idea. Using subtlety or hinting at something or insinuating something doesn't actually work. You need to be open, you need to be forthcoming, you need to be clear. So here's an example. We are really backed up in the kitchen because we have a really large group that came in all at once. And so your dinner is going to take about an extra 20 minutes longer than anticipated. Would you like a special appetizer on the house or perhaps a cocktail while you wait? That is open and clear, and it doesn't leave these people sitting there glaring at the server with daggers because they're wondering where their dinner is and whether or not they've been forgotten. So it's letting people in on the issue. It's letting people know what was going on. So those were all things to do with managing the expectations of your clients. I just want to review one more time so you've got them. So know that everyone comes with preconceptions. And just even knowing that gives you a place to start so that you can set expectations with them and be on the same page. Make no assumptions that they are already on the same page, because they probably are not. Be curious. Ask and allow for questions. Ask them what their experience of this service or product is before, because maybe they are closer to being on the same page as you are than you thought. Communicate repeatedly. Use email, communication in person, personal conversation, voicemail, images, whatever it takes. As Churchill said, give the point a tremendous whack. Let them know in different ways that your expectations and to help them understand how it is that they are going to get the service that you're offering. Deliver when you say you will, and if you can't deliver when you say you will, bring them on site and let them know your progress and when they might expect delivery. Don't leave them in the dark, because that's when people get cranky. That's when people start making up stories, and that's when people stop trusting that you know what you're doing. Anticipate problems and address possible worries and issues before they happen. Explain the why so that they understand the reasoning behind any limitations. There are no returns in this product because it's sealed, so when it's open, we can't resell it, for example. If people know there are no returns on this product, if it's been stated that there are no returns in this product, then they won't try and return the product, hopefully. If it's just printed in small print on a tiny at the bottom of the bill, most people won't read it. So it needs to be spoken. Another example might be we are having a problem with our software and we're working on getting it solved. So while normally we would have the estimate to you in 48 hours, we're now anticipating it will take up to 72 hours to get you the information. Explain the why. She is unable to have a drink of juice right now, and I know she's really thirsty, but there's a possibility she might need surgery, and if that's the case, anything in her stomach would delay that by a few hours, so we'd rather she didn't. So right now, we're not going to give her a drink of juice. That is clear communication, and yes, that took a whole lot longer to say than she's not allowed to have juice, which doesn't give the people asking the why and doesn't get them on side or on board. So that's the reminder. Those are the things that are good to be thinking about. And what about managing your own expectations? Well, firstly, remember that most people, and I forget this all the time too, so we're all in this together. Remember that most people on this planet are not mind readers. So unless you voice your expectations of others, people will remain unaware of them or will just be guessing. I read somewhere recently, and I don't recall where, that we are frequently disappointed in others because we don't share our expectations with them and because we do leave them guessing. It really comes down to clear communication and to sharing with those around you and setting some boundaries and some objectives. And the writer of this article said we should just stop expecting things. Stop with the expectations and start communicating and asking for what we want and need, thereby skipping the whole expecting and then having the disappointing dopamine drop experience. If you want flowers on your anniversary, ask for them rather than hoping you'll get some and being disappointed when they don't magically appear. If your expectations are secret and you're the only one who has them and knows about them, then you're setting yourself up for big disappointment. And that can be applied in the workplace as well. That can be applied in your personal life and in your workplace. If you're expecting a raise and then one doesn't materialize, how is your boss to know that you are expecting one unless it's been discussed? Unless there's been some indication that you would be getting one. You know, if you are expecting a performance review and it doesn't happen, there are many scenarios that you could use in the workplace around expectations. It would be a good idea to think about, what are my expectations? What am I expecting here? And so one idea is to write them down. Write down your expectations. What is it that you are expecting? And do the right people know that those are your expectations? What are the expectations that you have of yourself? What are the things you are setting yourself up for expectation-wise. Put it down on paper. See if it's reasonable. Are your own expectations too high? Are they reasonable? Are they honest expectations? Are you setting yourself up for disappointment or success in what you expect to achieve? What are your priorities? What will success look like if you meet or exceed all your own expectations? These are a lot of things to think about, but managing your own expectations in a situation is a good thing to think about before you get into the situation. So lots of things to think about. I leave you with this. We human beings are weird creatures. We are full of fears, full of anxieties, full of emotions. And because of that, the more open and honest we can be with our communication, the more we can be curious and ask really good questions, the more we can listen to one another, then the more we can learn and understand and relate to each other. And that's the goal. Because we are far, far stronger together, my friends, than we are tearing each other apart. So let's work on the together part. And one way to do that is through better and more meaningful communication. And that's my goal. And I hope that's why you're here and why you're listening to the Communication Diva podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please, I ask you to share it. Come over to communicationdiva.com and come over to the show notes page under the podcast tab. I think they're showing up under the blog tab as well for some reason. But at the bottom of each of the show note pages, there are share buttons. So you can share via Twitter, Google, Reddit, LinkedIn, Facebook, Pinterest, I think, whatever social media site you hang out on, there should be a button at the bottom. You can send it a copy by email as well and share it with a friend. I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to get out there even further than I already am, and so your help would be greatly appreciated. So until next time, this is Jenn Swanson. Keep listening, keep being curious, and keep talking to one another.